Hello everyone, my name is Broken Pinky, and welcome to my ICPL Season 11 Draft Breakdown. Now I'm being a little forward, I know. So, first of all, hello, I'm Broken Pinky. You might know me best as being a Splatoon commentator, or a competitive commentator, or a competitive Splatoon player for Sheer Cold, Div 5 team, trying to make our way into mid-level, but this is not about Splatoon. This is about something else, a little more, different. Because I'm a huge fan of Pokemon, huge Pokemon fan. I've been playing competitive Pokemon now for the last 8 years, pretty much. Just on Pokemon Showdown and stuff. And I've been a big fan of draft leagues. Ever since I started competitive Pokemon, and very recently, everything just kind of fell into place for me to be able to make a childhood dream of mine come true, start making some YouTube videos. And that's exactly what I'm here to do. We are going to be covering this Wi-Fi Draft League on Scarlet and Violet cart. And I'm going to be pulling you guys through my drafting, or my draft, all my team builders, all my battles, to hopefully be the numero uno reigning at the end. But first of all, I'm being a little forward. What is Draft League? Essentially, it's fantasy football translated to competitive Pokemon. Each team drafts 9 to 11 Pokemon from a tier list, where each Pokemon is valued from 1 point to 20 points. 20 points is like your really good stuff, your Iron Valiant, your Dragapult, your Urshifu Single Strike. Very strong, very versatile, all that stuff. 1 point, Sunkern, Sentret, Pidgey. I don't know, Pidgey's not even allowed because it's not even in the game, but you know what I mean. The shit ones. You don't want to use them. You don't want to be forced to bring them to games. And each team has, or each coach has a total of 115 points to spend. Coach is just a stand-in for players, as is mentioned above, because, you know, it's a big sports theme. And in that sports theme, I decided to name my team the Houston DRACOS after the Houston Astros, with this lovely little logo here that did not take very long, but shout out to my friend Beal for that. Speaking of shout outs to my friend Cherry Mancake for actually, giving me some advice on a capture card to get, because it's going to be on the cart version of Scarlet and Violet, and I need a capture card, so shout out to Cherry for hooking me up with that. As it is Scarlet and Violet, we are going to be terastallizing. That is part of the game. But it's going to be a low-tier Terra format. Each team chooses 2 to 3 Terra Captains. Only Pokemon valued at 10 points or less can be Terra Captains, and they're the only ones that can terastallize. And your Terra Captains have to add up to 16 points or less, which is not mentioned. Terra Captains can terastallize into 2 selected non-stab types or 1 stab type. So let's say I want to terastallize, I don't know, let's say Overquill. I want to terastallize an Overquill. I have to choose one of its stab types are either dark or poison, and then from there I get to choose 2 other types I can turn it into with terastallization, such as water, steel, psychic, bug, ghost. I can choose stellar type as well. I can just do pretty much, I just have to fall within those guidelines. Only one of any given Pokemon drafted across all teams. If I pick Overquill, no one else in this league is allowed to have an Overquill except for me, and if they try to take it from me, then they will be laughed at and mocked, because that is a very silly thing to do in draft league context. It's your one and done, so that means snipes are aplenty, and I got sniped pretty goddamn hard, so the direction my team was going got completely derailed. So now, this was my best. And then each week, coaches are pitted head-to-head, 6v6 single battles. They get to prepare versus the other team's roster of 9 to 11 Pokemon and choose the 6 that they think are best. And this is really, the meat and potatoes of Draft League. This is where you get some creative shit, stuff you wouldn't expect. Like, I don't know, one time I had to use a freaking trick Iron Ball Golurk to saddle a Corviknight or a Rotom Heat with an Iron Ball so I could then Earthquake it and then not be affected by the Iron Ball because I'm Klutz, or the Choice Scarf or whatnot. A lot of creative stuff. Super excited about that. And it's going to be an 8-week regular season, and then top 8 move on to a final playoff bracket for best of 1 single elim. All of that will come later. So after the draft, I was, pretty much in the middle of the pack, but there were a few Pokemon. There were 2 Pokemon in particular that I was looking at before the draft started that I really, really wanted. And I actually ended up getting both of them. And the first of this, they're both actually Pokemon I thought were very heavily underpriced. They're, Pokemon are priced for anywhere from 1 point to 20 points. I thought both of my first two picks were very underpriced, and the first of which is going to be the mascot. We got Latios here. Latios, I mean, if you think of Draco Meteor, you probably think of Latios, just because, like, he's on the logo, but, like, just look at him. 130 special attack, so incredibly strong with that Draco Meteor, especially off a choice deck set. Just does so much damage. So much damage. This thing also has coverage out the wazoo. Aura Sphere, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Ice Beam, Surf. It gets weird shit as well. Like, I think it gets Solar Beam and Grass Knot, because why not? I mean, it's Latios. You can just do whatever you want with it, man. It's an incredibly versatile Pokemon offensively. And in the DLC, you got two massive buffs. First of which, its signature move, Luster Purge, got buffed from 70 base power to 95 base power. Which means, while still keeping its secondary effect of a 50% chance to drop special defense by one stage. Which is an incredible move. It's stronger than Psychic, which is your normal Psychic stab, or it was beforehand. And let's say, like, the opponent tries to switch into Steel type to resist the Psychic type Luster Purge. Or even the Dragon type Draco Meteor, and they switch into a Luster Purge, their special defense gets dropped, and now I can just smack them with an Aura Sphere for big damage. So it's so nice in that regard. It also has a really good speed tier of 110. Speed tier is basically your base speed stat, and the reason why it's tiers is because it's really valuable to have Pokemon of speed tiers that are relatively close to each other. You want typically 10 to 15 points between each Pokemon's speed stats on your draft. Because that means it prevents your opponent from running Adamant or Modest Pokemon, where they would otherwise have to run Jolly or Timid Pokemon to outspeed. So something like a Latios can run a Modest Nature versus a team that has their fastest Pokemon at 95 speed, I think. So it's really valuable. It's really good to like have it on hand, and it can really save your ass when you least expect it to. And then the points at the other side, 17. That's just how much it costs. As I said, each team has 115 to start with, and I thought this Pokemon could be 19 points, honestly. This thing is insanely good, and I'm excited to use it. I've never used it before. I've never used any of these Pokemon before, but I was really looking forward to using Latios. But there's another Pokemon I was looking forward to, and it's actually going to be a Terracat. This is one of the Pokemon on my team that can Terrastalize. One of two, to give you a little sneak peek look ahead. And it's a Pokemon that I think is quite, frankly, too broken to Terrastalize. And I'm going to be moving through this a little quickly just because I had an early recording that just got stopped randomly, so I would like that to not happen again. But, yeah, without further ado, we got Terra Lucario. I was looking at a bunch of other fighting types to put on the squad, but Lucario is just so incredibly good for so many reasons. So, Lucario on my team, the three types I chose was Fighting as my stab type, and Normal and Flying as my non-stab types. So let's go through one by one. Fighting just makes this thing a really good breaker. 90 speed is alright, but 110 attack, Terra Fighting, stab close combat, gonna do a lot of damage. Same thing with Aura Sphere off the special attack as well. They're gonna do big damage, and so is Vacuum Wave, which is a very strong priority move that Lucario gets. Incredibly valuable, so this thing's fighting moves are gonna be hitting really hard with Terra Fighting. But the big draw of this Pokemon are the other two Terra types, Terra Normal and Terra Flying. Terra Normal, why do you want Terra Normal? Well, Lucario is one of two Pokemon allowed to Terrastalize that gets access to the priority move Extreme Speed. The other of which is Dragonair, which don't think I need to tell you why Dragonair is not nearly as good as Lucario. Pretty much everything else that gets Extreme Speed is more than 10 points, can't Terrastalize, but Lucario, right at 10 points. So, Terra Normal Extreme Speed is just terrifying. It just does so much damage. Extreme Speed is the strongest priority move, other than First Impression. And unlike that, and every other priority move, such as, Sucker Punch, Thunderclap, Mach Punch, Aqua Jet, Bullet Punch, all that stuff, it is an extra priority tier above. It's +2 priority, which means it also outspeeds stuff like Prankster. So, Extreme Speed Terra Normal Lucario is a terrifying endgame cleaner, and Latios is a great breaker to set up those endgame scenarios. So, for 27 points, I got an absolutely terrifying offensive 1-2 punch, and that's not even it, because Lucario is also incredibly versatile. It also has a ginormous physical and special coverage move pool, and that allows it to be a great setup Pokemon with Terra Flying. Terra Flying it allows me to turn 2 of my weaknesses into resistances in Fighting and Ground. And it gives me a very strong Terra Blast Flying, which goes great with Fighting Stab. And it gives me a great opportunity to set up either Swords Dance or Nasty Plot, depending on what the situation calls for, or even Agility, honestly. And it's just so incredibly difficult to predict what Lucario is going to do, because, like, I'm bluffing either being Terra Normal E-Speed or Terra Flying setup, and you don't know which setup I'm going to be with Terra Flying until I actually click the move. And if you guess wrong, you have a +2 Lucario looking in your face, ready to mow your entire team to the ground. And if you even guess wrong there, I can Terra Fight and just blow you back, pretty much. And Lucario is a great partner for Latios. They both work really well together. Latios is naturally immune to ground-type moves, and it resists fighting and fire that Lucario is weak to. And Lucario has justified his switch into dark moves, has a good matchup into steel types and dark types that Latios doesn't like to deal with. So they both just work incredibly well with each other. And I didn't even mention, Latios gets Flip Turn for some phenomenal momentum. Moves like Flip Turn are just phenomenal in draft, and Latios getting it is huge because stuff that Latios doesn't want to deal with, you can just Flip Turn out into Lucario, and Lucario would love to deal with them. So great 1-2 punch right there. But this is where the breakdown is going to take a little bit of a turn, because I had a whole plan lined up. I had a bunch of other Pokemon. I took like Weavile, Glamora, Empoleon, stuff like that. I wanted like a completely different team, but there was one crucial Pokemon that I wanted called Sandy Shocks that got sniped. And you might be confused why I wanted Sandy Shocks, and I'm not going to explain it because I didn't get it, so it doesn't matter. But the point is, the plan fell through. I had to improvise, and I had to use pretty much the period after Draft League to make all of my transactions to make a salvageable team. I kind of just drafted wishy-washily, because by that point I'd already invested so many points in my plan that it had fallen through and it wouldn't work. So basically the rest of this team was drafted all at once. I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible in a way that is somewhat coherent, but let's just get right into it. Next Pokemon I'm talking about is going to be Iron Bundle, and that speed tier of 136 speaks for itself. It is fast, it is strong, it has perfect neutral coverage in just Freeze Dry and Hydro Pump, doesn't need anything else, momentum and Flip Turn, and it's just really good utility with Taunt and Encore as well. With that speed stat, it is incredibly good at just annoying Pokemon, you know, forcing them to lock into setup moves that they would not want to use. And I mean, it's just such a good grabber of momentum, and it just makes such a good pivoting core with Latios, especially with that just massive speed stat. With Booster Energy Speed, this is among the fastest Pokemon in the game, and it has freedom to choose whatever moves it wants, unlike something that wants to run a Choice Scarf like Dragapult or Electrode, which they have to run Choice Scarf just to catch up to Booster Speed Bundle. So Bundle is so incredibly good. I'm very excited to use it. I've seen it used so many times to such a great effect, and I'm excited to use it myself. 19 points is exactly where this Pokemon should be, because it is just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, Iron Bundle, it's a pretty simple Pokemon, but it has a bit of nuance. As I mentioned, Taunt and Encore are both phenomenal moves that annoy passive and setup threats. And that 114 defense stat makes it surprisingly resilient against priority moves that would want to pick it off. So as long as I'm not switching into a Vacuum Wave or getting caught by Vacuum Wave, this Pokemon is just incredibly good at outspeeding and one-hit KOing and two-hit KOing a lot of Pokemon, whether it be offensive or defensive. Next up, I went with Cinderace. Look at old Cinderace as my fire type. Good speed. It's a good bridge of speed tiers between Iron Bundle and Latios. This is the main reason I wanted it. That and its signature move, Court Change. One of its two signature moves, Court Change, which essentially swaps the hazards and screens on your side of the field and the opponent's side of the field, switches them. So if the opponent sets up Reflect and Light Screen, I can Court Change them, and now I have them. If the opponent sets up Stealth Rocks, I can Court Change, and now they have to deal with the Stealth Rocks, and my field is like hazard clear. So it's a phenomenal move. This Pokemon is a great user of it. It's just a good support in that aspect alone, and even then, it's a great offensive Pokemon with its ability to Libero, take advantage of its great, attacking move pool. High Jump Kick, Pyro Ball, Gunk Shot, U-Turn, Sucker Punch, Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, even Double Edge. It's just when they're all backed by Stab, and that's a pretty solid attack stat that Cinderace has. It's a pretty annoying Pokemon, especially since, you know, it's a good pivoting Pokemon with U-turn. It has a Will-O-Wisp to continue being annoying. It's just a very hard Pokemon to pin down. And, I mean, it's just able to kind of dance on you a little bit. Just with how it, you know, swaps around your hazards, pivots in and out, can spread some nice burns, and is pretty liable to hit most of your team for super effective damage in some way, just because of its incredibly strong move pool. And that super effective damage is going to be backed by Stab with Libero. So, very, very strong Pokemon. I'm super excited to use it. I think it works great because with Latios, Iron Bundle, and Cinderace, that is a very threatening pivot core. Flip turn, and U-turn on all three of those. Just because, you know, it does solid damage, but it's great for positioning each other in front of Pokemon that you know, they wouldn't want to deal with. You know, Cinderace doesn't want to deal with water types, but you U-turn to Iron Bundle, that can hit him with Freeze Dry. And Iron Bundle doesn't want to deal with fighting types, but you can flip turn into Latios, and you can hit them with Psychic. And then Latios doesn't want to deal with Steel types, but you can flip turn into Cinderace, and you can hit him with Pyro Ball. So everything just kind of works together really nicely. It's a very strong offensive core in just 4 Pokemon. So super excited about this. But with some offense, you gotta have some defense to rely on. And I picked one of the best defensive and supportive pieces that exists right now. I got that there's Scream Tail right there. Let me just make sure this recording is going. We are good to go, baby. Scream Tail here and now. Incredible defensive stats: 115 HP, 99 defense, 115 special defense, and 111 speed. All really, really solid. Being a fast wall is incredibly valuable because you can get off all your supportive moves before the opponent gets to move, and there's so much. Thunder Wave, Encore, Disable, Stealth Rock, Wish, Protect. It has access to something called Dry Baton Pass, which is just so incredibly valuable. It has good setup options with both Calm Mind and Bulk Up, and it can become like similar to like Super Rachi almost with like Wish. It can heal itself, it can keep itself alive, and then it just has, you know, stored power or good fairy coverage, good fire, electric, ice coverage. It's just, the move pool is absolutely ridiculous in this thing. It's also a good Stealth Rock setter, and it can do just about anything at once. The biggest downfall of this Pokemon is twofold. One, it only has 4 moves, so it can't do everything it wants to do, unfortunately. And 2, that Psychic typing really sucks, because making it neutral, dark, and weak to Ghost is not good. But luckily, I have Lucario, Terra Normal to be immune to Ghost moves, and Justified to get a nice attack boost when it's hit by a Dark move. Are both really valuable, but it is a notable weakness. And it can also be, Scream Tail can also be pretty passive, but as I mentioned, Dry Baton Pass functions as a sort of U-turn. Now, stat passing is not allowed. I can't Calm Mind and then Baton Pass that to an Iron Bundle or something. That would be broken. But what I can do is I can click Baton Pass without having any stat boosts for what's called a Dry Baton Pass, and it just acts as a U-turn, essentially. So now I have even more pivoting, except this one can pass really fat wishes to pretty much anything else, and that just really improves the longevity of my team, especially if I can use Cinderace to make sure I don't have to deal with hazards. So the pieces are starting to come together, but my offensive core is still missing a little something, in my opinion. It's missing a little punch, especially on the physical side. I don't have a good physical breaker without, you know, having to rely on Lucario's Terra, and I want to keep my options with Lucario as open as possible, just because I want to take advantage of the fact that it can do just about anything on an offensive perspective. So I wanted a dedicated physical breaker, and I wanted one that can hit that 100 speed tier, because having 100 speed is so incredibly valuable. It's just such a good speed stat. It's very common, it outspeeds so much, so Pokemon that checks all of those boxes, and a fan favorite of myself included, it's going to be Staraptor. 100 speed, incredibly strong attack stat, and this Pokemon really only needs 5 moves. It needs Brave Bird, Double Edge, U-turn, Close Combat, and Quick Attack. That's all you need. Slap on a Choice Band, slap on a Heavy Duty Boots, slap on a Choice Scarf, put whatever you want on it, give it Reckless as an ability, and this Pokemon is just going to do insane damage for you. It's phenomenal physical breaker, just does so much damage. It has really good coverage in just a few moves. It continues my good pivoting with U-turn, and I mean, Flying Stab is just insane. It gives me another Ghost immunity as well. It's just so solid all around. It's very strong. It's just hard to deal with. It's hard to switch into. Choice banded Reckless Bravers just chunk everything other than like the sturdiest of steel types and the sturdiest of rock types. And for those, you have close combat. And for electric types, you just hit them with a double edge. So Staraptor, super good. I love this Pokemon. It's one of my favorites. You know, back in the DPP, back in Gen 4, super fun. I always use it in game, and I'm excited to use it in draft for the first time. So at this point, my offensive core, I feel pretty good about it. I have physical breaking, I have special breaking, I have physical cleaning, I have special cleaning, I have hazard control, I have utility, I have pivoting. Everything there I feel is good. So now, at this point, I wanted to round out my supportive pieces. And one of the things I feel like I'm lacking a little bit is hazard setting. I only have rocks from Screentail, so I wanted to go with a nice defensive piece that gives me more access to hazards and can maybe help with this ghost weakness I'm starting to rack up just a little bit with the double psychics. So welcome to the team, Hisuian Quillfish. Very bulky Pokemon, surprisingly fast with 85 speed. Dark and Poison is a phenomenal defensive typing. Only weak to ground, of which I have 2 immunities so far. And I mean, it gets spikes, it gets toxic spikes, it gets priority with Aqua Jet, it hits relatively hard with Gunk Shot and Crunch. I've seen offensive sets work really well with this guy, so I'm excited, but it's mostly just a utility Pokemon that gets access to dual hazards. Can, you know, generally poison something, if not a lot of things with toxic spikes. And it's just a very good bulky Pokemon to switch into a lot of attacks, especially attacks that my team doesn't like to deal with, you know, like Shadow Ball, Poltergeist. What else we got? I mean, I guess that's about it. Not super concerned with grass types, not super concerned with fighting types either, though. So, I don't know. Hisuian Quillfish just fits in really nicely, just gives me good hazard options. And that typing is just so nice. It also gives me a Toxic Spikes Absorber, which is really valuable because Toxic Spikes can be very annoying for Screamtail in particular. Everything else doesn't really care about him, but Screamtail does not like getting poisoned, and Hisuian Quillfish can help to, you know, abate that a little bit. So, a great Pokemon in general. Now, as for what's next, I guess I haven't really gone into this. There's this concept in drafts called cores. Typically, the most common ones you hear of are Fire, Water, Grass, and Fairy, Dragon, Steel. Now, for me personally, the way I like to play this game, I need a bulky Steel and a bulky Water in my draft. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the points are really starting to dwindle. Like, I don't have a ton of points left to play with. All the better Steels and all the better Waters are essentially gone. So, I mean, let's just do a little bit of math here. 23 points left, and there's still a lot of stuff I need. I need a good electric type, I need a good ground type. Those are pretty much must-haves. So, at this point, I really just need my utility, but I need some more, like, utility types, but a bulky Steel and a bulky Water are must for me. So, I'll get them one at a time here. Bulky Steel is going to be Caparaja. Agents might know what is Agent Caparaja, you know what I'm saying. But Caparaja is an incredible Pokemon. Very bulky with that massive HP stat, solid defenses, and that attack stat is something to behold. Even without investment, Heavy Metal Heavy Slam does so much damage. It's another Stealth Rock setter to take that off of Screamtail. It gets access to Knockoff. It gets a great offensive move pool. Earthquake, Supercell Slam, Super Power, Heat Crash, Stone Edge, Rock Blast. It just gets so many good moves, and they all hit really hard, all on a Pokemon that has a really solid defensive profile. So Caparaja, I mean, it's pretty simple, all things considered, but it is a beast of a Pokemon. Just bulky, hits hard. What more could you want? Now as for a bulky Water, also knocks out my electric type here. We got Lantern. It also gives me a nice 67 speeds here, just for something slower than Quillfish Hisui, other than Caparaja. Now, the biggest issue with Lantern is it can be pretty passive. That's no doubt without that. But Lantern does get access to some good moves. It gets Scald, Thunder Wave, Discharge, all of which are really good at spreading status. Burn and Para are, I mean, the name of this thing's game. Because you don't want to get paralyzed, you don't want to get burned, especially if you're an offensive threat, and Lantern is just super good at spreading those, while also being a solid pivot with Flip Turn and Volt Switch. Not to mention, this Pokemon has access to both Volt Absorb and Water Absorb abilities. Those are both great types to be immune to, while also just having pretty solid bulk in general, and just a really good typing in general. I did consider making this Pokemon a Terra Captain, as that would give me 16 points of Terra Captains, which is, you know, right at the bar. But there's a certain little Glizzy a little bit later that I think might be a little better suited. But regardless, Lantern is incredibly bulky. It's a really good sponge, and it's a good status spreader, and it's a good pivot. So it keeps the strong pivoting that my team has intact, which is nice. But looking at this team, there's a few things that I am still missing. If you'll notice, my only hazard removal is Court Change. I would really like a Rapid Spinner or a Defogger. I think that'd be really nice. I also don't have a Ghost type. Ghost types are really good to be immune to normal and fighting moves. And I don't have a Grass type to fill out my Fire, Water, Grass Core now that I have that bulky Water. And a Pokemon that I think is really underrated that fills out all of those boxes, it's going to be Bramblegast. Ball is life, folks. But why Bramblegast? Well, simply put, has access to all of those things. Power Whip and Poltergeist are both incredibly strong stabs to be hitting, especially with a 115 attack. And with Rapid Spin, giving it a speed boost, this Pokemon can actually be a pretty dangerous late game cleaner. Not to mention, has access to Spikes, has access to Strength Stab. Those are both phenomenal moves. I mean, it's to be said, all of my offensive Pokemon have phenomenal utility moves behind them. And that just allows them to be a little bit more three-dimensional than your average, you know, Urshifu that just wants to click offensive attacks. This Pokemon, Bramblegast, is a strong spike setter. It's a good user of Strength Sap that can drop the opponent's attack while giving it longevity. Sorry about that. Quick little jump cut, guys. I had some technical difficulties there, unfortunately. I don't know why. OBS is starting to be a little crazy, but as I was saying, yeah, all my offensive Pokemon have a ton of utility. This Pokemon is just capable of staying alive really, really well. With stuff like Strength Sap, I mean, it's just, the move pool is, it's very tight. It has what it needs, gets in, gets out, but everything it has is absolutely phenomenal. So super excited to use this Pokemon. But if you're good at math, adding up all those points there on that that right hand side, the very edge of your screen, you'll see I have 111 points spent. I have 4 points left for one final Pokemon. And this one Pokemon, I need a ground type. I need a ground type. It is such a good type to have. It is a necessity in my opinion. And don't you worry. I good and goddamn got one. And I got one that I think is criminally underpriced for all of the incredible things that it can do. Because, folks, my last pick for 3 points in my last Terra Captain to go alongside Lucario for the Houston Dracos. We got little Glizzy. Say hello to Gligar. Terra, Steel, Ground, and Water are the types that we can deal with. And I don't even know why this thing was 3 points. Gliscor was like 18, I think. It was so expensive. I know why. Gliscor has Poison Heal. It's a broken ability. And Gligar, unfortunately, so sadly, lost Roost. But what it lost in Roost, it has so much in so many other areas to make it the most incredibly valuable 3-point Pokemon I could have possibly imagined. First of all, access to Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes. 3 incredible forms of hazard setting, all on this one Pokemon. Also has U-Turn and Knockoff, 2 of the best utility moves in the game, period. This completes my pivoting core with Latios, Bundle, Cinderace, Screamtail, Staraptor, Lantern, and now Gligar. 7 of my Pokemon can pivot in and out whenever, however they please, to each other to help deal with all of their own little checks and counters, including to the Pokemon that can't pivot as well. Just get them in for free and get absolutely free setup opportunities. Speaking of setup opportunities, this Pokemon can set up, and it can set up pretty well. I'll just leave that there. As for the 3 types, both of these resist Ice. Both Water and Steel resist Ice, which is obviously this thing Quad Weakness. And Water is just a really good all-around type, as is Steel, and it's just going to be really, really bulky versions of those types. And then Terra Ground to just keep my ground typing and just be oh so awesome, as is per usual for this little guy. So super duper excited to use Gligar. I think this guy is going to be absolutely phenomenal. It has all of the right moves in all the right places, and it just fits in with this team so nicely because while it doesn't have recovery of its own, alongside Quillfish, Copperajah, and Lantern, Screamtail can pass big-ass wishes to all of them, which is just so good. It's so good. It is so good. I'm super happy with this defensive core. I'm super happy with this offensive core. And while, yes, there are weaknesses with this team, I struggle to switch into dark moves. I struggle to switch into ghost moves. And especially knockoff. I struggle to switch into knockoff. And my speed tiers aren't as good as they could be. With what I had, with everything that happened, the way that it did, I am super proud of this draft. Super proud to be your coach of the Houston DRACOS here. And I'm hoping that this team of Latios, Lucario, Iron Bundle, Cinderace, Screamtail, Staraptor, Hisuian Quillfish, Copperajah, Lantern, Brambleghast, and Gligar will be your champions of this season of the ICPL. That being said, I am Broken Pinky. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I wish you all the best of luck. Have yourself the best day possible, and I will see you guys next time with the Week 1 team builder for this league. Take care.